All right, we're doing another of the Rhapsody things. So currently it's where we are is that Achilles decided to go to the to Eëtion's Thebes, and he was preparing to like talk to his men, and then the gods had sort of convened to play for their different sides in the conflict. And I think I'm going to alter one aspect, which is the objective of what Athena is about to do. And so we'll see how this goes here. And thus, having spoken to all the assembled Olympians, that Lord of the lightning and the dark cloud sat back in his spot on Mount Olympus, preparing to head to Mount Ida and watch the action below as it played out. And so, wheeling down to earth in her godlike chariot that flew throughout the sky as fast as thought, that gray-eyed maiden, Athena, had come down to the camp of the Myrmidons. And the son of Peleus was just preparing to speak to his men and to order the march out to the plains and the forests to approach that town of Thebes. 4, 5, or 6 days' march, depending on their speed, though Achilles did train his men to march at a great speed, greater than those of other armies, even those of the typical army of Thebe that was commanded by Phoenix and other captains sent by his lord father. But Athena had another thought in her mind, that she would cause that great one, the great runner Achilles, to be given even more honor among the men, that he would not achieve a feat through command of great hosts of soldiers, but rather that he would do something superhuman that had not been done by any of the captains there assembled in that great contingent of Achaean hosts. And so she brought it into her mind to take the shape of another, one of the speakers among the Achaean camp, that one Talthybius, Agamemnon's herald, and he came as Achilles was preparing to give his speech to the Myrmidon men. And he said, finding Achilles in that spot, preparing to step forth in front of his men, all of them there assembled, but he, Talthybius, and Athena behind him, took Achilles aside and said to him, O son of Peleus, there is great turmoil here in the army, as we have just gotten word from some of our runners who were sent out. Idomeneus was preparing to sack another of the cities nearby to the town of Troy, to take out a great contingent, but he has just found that those Cilicians who he was planning to take on have been reinforced on the march by Thebans, or not Thebans, but rather have been reinforced by some other contingent that comes towards Troy, the Thracians, that hold their curved swords and their crescent shields, and who slice the heads of men like wheat or grass in the field. These men have reinforced those great Cilicians of great power, and he is troubled, for Odysseus and Diomedes and Nestor's great contingent, and so many of the men have already gone, that what of the great forces can be brought to bear? That giant Salaminian Ajax is already tasked with protecting our camp from any who might assail it from the city of Troy, or who might deign to come in from the sea. And he is supported by the Locrian Ajax. We cannot stand to spare either one. Menesthius of Athens is still not yet arrived, and many of the smaller captains have forces too small, too insignificant to bring to bear against this great force that rushes upon that city of Troy. But if only we could have a supporting great army to go with Idomeneus as he takes on these men, we might be able to prevent a great disaster of these huge contingents coming in and supporting Priam's burg. Achilles heard this, but he said to him, Talthybius, what is it you want me to do about it? You have heard, as well as I have, that Phoenix is kept captive, the lord of the Dolopians, that one who has raised me since I was a squalling babe, burping up wine onto his chest as he fed me at dinner table. You ask that I should divert my God-given plan and move towards Idomeneus's objective of the Cilicians and these newly come-in Thracians? Nay, I cannot do this thing. This is a word of honor on my part, and it is something more important to me than life that is so dear, something for which I would gladly give up all I have. Thus Athena said to him, under the words of Talthybius, Yea, I have thought that you might said as much, and I would not ask that you come with all your entire forces to do this thing. But if you could hold that city of Thebes in check until our forces are able to take down this supporting army, then perhaps we would be able to hold yours at a stalemate and then come in with all of our reinforcements afterwards and crush that town of Thebes into the dust. All it would take is some organized fighting on your part and that legendary strength of which we have heard so much. So what I propose is that you, Achilles, take your man Automedon, that lordly captain who drives the chariot, and a few of your picked men to camp out in the forests and deal disorganized warfare to these Thebans, so that they cannot exit the city without losing multitudes of their men. Find them in some river or that they must ford, that they must go across, that stands outside the city of Thebes, perhaps the river Placus, where it is said that no great number of hosts can cross, but only in one small bottleneck can they go through unharmed. Some spot like that, can you challenge men to single combat easily and not risk great hosts of men all at once? But this is somewhere that a small force of only a few could take on a giant army. And thus we would ask that you send your man Patroclus, that one at your right hand, who, though he is no match for your strength, none can say, not many can say that they are. But he would command the Myrmidons in this expedition against the Cilicians and the Thracians. And thus we would be for a little space protected. Achilles heard this, and his heart was glad, for he wanted to win great fame for his friend Patroclus, and to allow him glory on the battlefield, not always tied to his own self, but that for his own sake. So he sent Patroclus and Eumelus and so many of those myrmidons, the entire force it was, and brought only with him a few of the attendants and his man Automedon to drive his chariot. And so it was decided, through the good counsel of Athena, and that legend of Peleus' son was brought in motion to be born, the man whose strength could not be tested against or measured up by any living man on the battlefield of Troy. An interesting one, that was pretty good. Basically what I wanted to do is get some kind of excuse for Achilles to go into the sort of Cú Chulainn like scenario where Cú Chulainn is basically sitting in the forest by himself with his charioteer and at various rivers challenging the other forces to like single combat and causing huge mayhem against them. And I wanted to find some reason to separate him from his army. So I came up with this idea of like that in the Irish tales, it's sort of a matter of honor that they just don't cross, and you know they don't have that much of a logistical reason not to do so. You would assume that they could overpower a single guy if they all came across, but in that story they just kind of take the challenges that he's setting out at face value. In this one, it's become more of like a hot gates type of thing where they literally can't cross and they have to take him on in single combat if they just to get across the river. But we'll figure that part out more logistically later. But I thought it was an interesting idea that Patroclus would lead the Myrmidons in a different campaign, that once this other force is crushed, that they would then come in and support Achilles, which is, there's this whole idea that like the men of Ulster who are supposed to be supporting Cú Chulainn are like, in the translation that I read by Bosley, they describe it as the pangs, where there's like this ancient story that like they were sort of cursed to have this like pain that comes over them for X amount of time and that they can't do anything. And then once they like come back from their pangs, then they would like be able to start fighting. They would rise up and support Cú Chulainn. So the idea with mine doesn't really use that same plot device, but rather that they had to go support another Achaean contingent, and then that they would at a certain point hopefully be able to come back. And so that's what my equivalent version of that is. I think it's all coming together pretty cleanly. I also originally I said that Athena was going to come down and just inspire him in his speech to the Myrmidons, and then I decided right before this one that she would come in and change the course of the thing so that he had to fight by himself, and her excuse for that being that she wanted to make it so that he gained more honor. Because like at this point in the story, I've made it so that Achilles is not actually like the legendary status of warrior that he would eventually be, that everyone's heard rumors that he could be that, but he has not attained it yet. And so this would be one of the things that like causes him to become that status. So there's a lot of interesting little threads at play that I'm having some fun creating. So let's just keep going with it and see how it goes.